guess I already went through that. I was going to say 6 exotic wood blanks, but we kind of blossomed that out to give you a choice there, which is great. Anthony's basic bowl turning class, if you had signed up for it, had to be canceled this past month, but will be rescheduled as soon as possible. So watch for an email announcement about that. And did you know Anthony Harris offers paid sessions for interested members of any skill level? If you're interested, see Anthony. You can possibly double up and get a little bit of savings if you want to do 2 or 3 members at a time. Any beyond 3 is probably a little harder to get some one-on-one time. So probably 2 to 3 members could share time there. And watch for an email regarding a club-sponsored wood, tool, and equipment sale to benefit Tony Giordano's widow. And I think the club will have a little benefit off of that. We're right now, are we still looking at March 1st? Saturday, March 1st, I think is what Anthony was originally trying for, but watch for an email. He said it possibly would run into a Sunday. Should be a good opportunity to grab some nice wood blanks, some tools, any kind of accessories. Tony had a very nice shop, has a lot of big stuff as well as small stuff. So hopefully we'll get a lot of excitement there. And we will encourage everybody to share that information with anybody they know that might be interested. So it's not just our club showing up. Other clubs, other folks out there are welcome to show up. Moving on to open shop, available every Saturday morning from 8:30 to 12 p.m. or later. A lot of times it runs a little later than that. And Wednesday and Thursday evenings from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. with the exception of the 3rd Wednesday of each month, which is the guild's meeting night. And we don't have an open shop that night. If you use the shop, please help keep it clean. And then just a note that we do have a doorbell on the back door for access. If you ever show up for open shop and the front doors are locked, it might be because we're the only ones in here and we don't like to leave that door unlocked and us be back in that room. So there is a doorbell on our back door and it rings right into our shop, and it's been used several times and we do hear it. So if you ever get here and want to make sure that nobody's here, ring the doorbell and wait a little bit. Should be somebody here if it's a regular open shop night. Please, if you're using the shop, please sign a shop waiver form and make sure that we get it on file. And please do not abuse the bandsaw. If you need assistance, just ask. But we want to try to avoid going through blades every month. So please don't abuse it. I think the Delta lathe, David, it's down right now? Okay, so we're down on the Delta lathe. That's the bigger Delta grade lathe in there. So please don't use it for right now, but we are. Actually, David is looking into helping us get it fixed. So thank you, David. And if you're using the shop and you do see problems with any of the equipment or any of the items in there, please report it to either the shop opener or one of the board members, just so that we know and we can try to address it. Let's see, going on down, we got help wanted. So there's some opportunities for you if you want to. We got we're going to schedule a shop cleanup on February 22nd, starting at 10 a.m. I laugh because I know what we're doing on the 23rd, and it's going to get dirty again. But if you use the shop, please try to be there and help clean up that morning. We'll be emptying out vacuums and filters and cleaning off lathe beds and things like that. But there's always plenty of things to do. And if we get enough people there, it takes 30 minutes and we really can get through there pretty quick. We are still looking for a few more shop openers and actually backups to the shop openers. Backups for Anthony on Wednesday and Thursday evenings. Backups for the second Saturday of the month opener is still needed. Actually, a backup and a true second. I think David's been covering us on that second Saturday, but we really should have somebody besides David on every Saturday. Or at least give David somebody that he can call when he can't be there. So there's still some opportunities there. As I mentioned, every month, Phil Sykes has been posting our content when he can on Instagram and Facebook accounts. And he's always looking for new member photos and content. So even if it's some photos that you had maybe of what you produced for tonight's challenge could be sent to Phil just to get some different images out there and online. The more content we have, the better exposure for the club. Phil's email, and it'll be in the newsletters and such, but it's philsykes@gmail.com. It's pretty simple, except you got to remember Phil uses 2 L's on the end of his name. So, and if you have any demonstrations to share, think about this, because I mean, we need our members to come up here and help provide the demonstrations. Or if you know of a demonstrator, or if you have a demonstration that you'd really like to see, Mike Thomas is trying to fill up this year's calendar. So see Mike, and we'll see what we can do to get it filled up. Moving on now to our upcoming activities and events. Like I mentioned, Anthony will be rescheduling his bowl turning class, so watch for an email on that, and get well soon, Anthony. David Alexander will be offering a skill builder discussion on chainsaw use, cleaning, kind of deep maintenance, sharpening the blade. All of that's going to be covered. We're talking about doing that this next Saturday. I think Kevin's note said 9 a.m. David's wondering if 11 a.m. would work. Number one, are y'all, who would be interested in coming and seeing that? Because David wants to make it worth his time. Is anybody going to show up? So minimal. Chesapeake. Okay. David, let's push it to 11. That way David gets in here early and he can turn for a little bit before we get into that. But 3 or 4, yeah, it'll be about like we did on the bandsaw. So, and if you know of anybody, or it will be announced, so that if you know of anybody else that's interested in seeing that information or getting some more information on chainsaws, David is a master of chainsaws. He really does know his stuff, so it'll be well worth being there if you want more information. March meeting is going to be a demonstration by me, and I'm going to demonstrate that little top roulette game that I had the other day. I'm going to focus on the most simple, basic, and talk to you about some ways you can kind of enhance that. But my thought is I can get through it in about an hour's time and give you guys a good lead on how to construct it. Let's see. Oh, if you're looking for any information, project information, instructions, or ideas, please check out the club library over here. If you are an AAW member, there's lots of resources on the AAW website as well that you can look to for ideas, direction, instruction. So please use those resources if you need to. And the best place to locate information regarding our club activities is the kcwoodturners.org website. I always go to the left-hand column, and I know Kevin was in there today trying to make some updates, so we're in pretty good shape on there. So that's always the best place. Keep an eye out for the Wood Chips newsletter. It usually has a lot of the announcements that included in it. Or simply ask one of the board members. If I can get the board members to raise their hand, if you don't know who they are, it's one of us. Just hit us up. So with that being said, that gets me through my announcements in a pretty rapid format, and we will turn it over to Phil Sykes, who's going to offer us a safety minute for this month. So Phil.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Good. Doing better than the guy stuck in the lathe. I don't know where they found that picture, but it is a great photo, especially because it's a metal lathe. It's not even a wood lathe. Tonight we're going to talk about first aid kits. Who has a shop with a first aid kit in it? Everyone should raise their hand. If you have a shop, it should have a first aid kit in it. If you don't, then I encourage you to get a first aid kit. And it doesn't have to be anything kind of too crazy or amazing, but it should cover a few things. This is the one that I have hanging in my shop. I picked this up probably at Home Depot or online. It's a contractor's first aid kit. It has a ton of stuff in it, more than you really need. But because I'm in there a lot, I got a lot of things in there. I got kids, I got people coming in and out. I wanted to have a full complement of things. I'll leave this open over here so you can check it out later. But it's got big bandages, little bandages. It's got gauze wraps, little scissors, instant cold pack right here. Just about anything you could want. Lots and lots of these little antiseptic things. The only thing it doesn't have is Tylenol. I don't know why it doesn't. But I'll leave this over here. You don't need to have anything quite this big in your shop, especially if it's just you. It's just, you journaling in there. You might not need a whole thing for a whole crew of people. So just find some kind of a bag that you can store some basics in. For those of you who have a first aid kit, what have you used out of that first aid kit? What is important to you? Band-Aids. Tweezers? Yeah, tweezers, Band-Aids, gauze. What else? Triple antibiotic. Anesthetic, glasses. Absolutely. A little magnifying glass. They make these little tweezers with magnifying glasses on them. This is like my little portable one that I take with me. And I need to refill it because I've got a box of Band-Aids, some big pads, and like a little kit I got at a pharmacy. Usually I have tape in here. I have some larger pads just in case. And I'll have like antiseptic pads and gloves. But apparently I need to restock this first aid kit because this kit comes with me just about anywhere I go. Because a lot of times if I'm out with a chainsaw, I don't want to carry my big box. But I'll carry that, and I carry this. Does anybody know what this is? What? It is a bleed kit. So has anyone ever seen anyone get cut by a chainsaw? Hopefully not. Maybe you've seen a video though. Inside this kit is made for one-handed use. It has a tourniquet in it. It has a very large emergency bandage that will soak blood to stop it. You've got your big scissors in here, a rescue blanket. I think this is another pad in here, and a thank you note for the manufacturer, which is great. But the main thing is it has a tourniquet in it, and in the event I were to cut myself and be out in the woods and it's just me, I want to be able to, with one hand, stop that bleeding. So these are not very expensive. I think this one was like $15. You can probably find one cheaper, probably find one more expensive. If you do any kind of chainsaw work, even if you're around other people, I would encourage you to have a tourniquet kit. Sometimes they're called a bleed kit. These emergency bandages are fantastic. They can absorb a ton of blood to help you stop the bleeding. You put this on, you wrap it with some tape, or you just hold it on there, and it will help you have enough time to get where you need to go or to make a phone call. Part of your first aid kit should be a phone. Should be a cell phone or another phone in your shop. Does anyone actually have a landline still? Mike, you do? Chris? Never answered. Yeah, it's in the shop. A landline is not a bad thing to have. I think I've even mentioned it before, those little life alert things. I've thought about looking into it and I haven't, but I probably should. If you're in the shop enough, those little beeper things where you can just push a button and it will signal, emergency personnel. You might think that it's kind of an extreme thing, but we've talked about many different accidents you can have in the shop, especially with the lathe. And if you're in the situation where that's all you can do is push that button, you might want to have that button available to you. The other thing that I recommend with the first aid kit is roll of paper towels. This is probably the most used piece of first aid in my shop. Probably shouldn't be. It's not sterile like the gauze over there, but the 2 times I've cut myself on a bandsaw, I've always reached for paper towels. I usually have shop towels, not these kind of paper towels in them, Shop towels are great. They absorb lots of blood. And when you get to the ER, they're like, oh, this is really good. It's been, staying all in there. But a good roll of Bounty wouldn't hurt either. If you have any questions about first aid kits or first aid in general, let me know. We can chat about it. Maybe we can get Chris to do that video again. No. It was like 15 minutes, wasn't it? But we might need to do a review of first aid in our shop or guidelines at some point in time. But feel free to come in, take a look, and let me know if you have any questions about first aid. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate Phil always offers his time to look up the subject, get us some information, and I do appreciate that. Tonight's demonstration is something that'll be new to me, so it may be new to some of you too. Bill Paullo is going to come up here and talk about wood stabilization. So let's give Bill a good round of applause and see where he leads us tonight. You got about 4 hours, Bill. Put this up, right?
Yeah, just that behind you. You want to get this thing going? How do we get this thing going?
Get rid of this one. That's perfect.
Get things screwed up.
Really, you want to flip that one off? Turn that one off, and I'm going to give you these two.
Are you muting that, Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to go to this one. We were getting feedback on that one off of this one. That way,
turn on the yellow light.
sorry.
You're blaming me?
We were getting feedback off of the other one, so I think I'm going to just have them use this one. You want to feed that through? I'm going to take this back to Rob.
You gotta get it.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
All right. First question I always get from a lot of people is, why do we stabilize wood? Number one, it's a good way to make porous or rotten or semi-rotten wood as hard as can be. Number two, to create water resistance. Not waterproof, but water resistance. Like if you're making, say, game calls, bottle stoppers that are going in and out of the refrigerator, or knife handles, or blanks, whatever you want to call those things. And to inject dye further into wood than what you can with just putting on a top coat of dye. Do any of you do lapidary work at all? Okay, well, lapidary people use the same thing like on turquoise. Turquoise is somewhat porous, and most of the turquoise you see out there in jewelry has been stabilized. So one for that. And the equipment you need, it's pretty simple. You need a vacuum pump, a chamber, he's got the other one over there, and a way to dry the wood and to cook the resin. And that's about the only thing you need. Oh, and the most important thing, patience, because this stuff takes a while to do. If you're an impatient person, don't do it. You're going to get frustrated. The wood that you use, you can't use oily woods like the rosewoods, cocobolo, kingwood, East Indian rosewood, tulip wood, because what happens there when you put it in the vacuum chamber, as the vacuum starts to pull the air out, it will pull the oil out and contaminate the resin, and the resin is ruined. So you can't use oily woods. And the wood has to be dry as you can possibly get it. If you use a moisture meter, that's not dry, because most of those only go down to 5 or 6%. And so that's not dry enough. It has to be down. So when you dry the wood, you either use a toaster oven like this, or I have an electric smoker that I use that I set at 220 degrees because water boils at 212. So you want to make sure that you can get all the moisture out of the wood. And the wood, when I put mine in, most of my stuff I do are pen blanks. I'll take them and I weigh them on a gram scale and I record it. If you're making if you're making 10 pen blanks and you cut it out of the same piece of wood, you only need to weigh 2 of them, put them in and mark them on there. Then I run it for 12 hours at 220 degrees. The harder the wood, the longer you got to run it. If I could tell you exact time, you can't, because you just don't know. At 12 hours, I pull them back, pull those 2 back out that I've marked, and I weigh them again to see if it's dropped. Then I'll put, usually they have dropped 2 or 3 grams. So then I put it back in for another couple hours. And if I come back and pull them out, if they haven't changed, then they're dry. They're dry enough to stabilize. But immediately after you pull them out of that, out of your oven or out of your smoker or however you're doing it, you got to immediately put them in. I use a double freezer bag, because the minute you take them out, they start to cool. They'll start taking moisture in again. So you take them out. I put them in that, close it up, and then stick it in I have a 3-gallon plastic bucket that I got from Lowe's that has a sealable lid, and I leave them that way, and they're good for until you're going to use them again. That's as far as the drying goes. And let's see. Okay, that in the wood, when you go to put the wood into the chamber with the resin, it has to be below 80 degrees or lower, because this stuff starts to cook at 85 degrees. And if you activate this and say leave it in your garage or where it gets over 85 degrees, you're going to have a $90 doorstop. And when you use the chamber, they recommend, they come with 5 feet of hose to keep this. Some of these things get hot. This one doesn't get very warm, but it does get over 85 degrees. So I try to keep it away from that, because if the resin solidifies in there, throw it away, because you're not going to get it out. It's ruined. So you got to be really careful with that. So when I activate mine, I put it in a refrigerator. If you activate it and just leave it in a room, it's good for a year to 14 months. In a refrigerator, you can get better than 2 years out of it. And at $90 a gallon, you don't want to waste it or use it. And as you're using it, you can use it again and again, because it doesn't evaporate. It just gets dirty from the wood. And if it gets too dirty for the type of wood you're stabilizing, put dye in it and use it as a dye product. But otherwise, it stays good. I've got some sitting at home now on my bench that I've had in cups that I've been trying to do some double dyeing with, and it's been there for a while. It hasn't evaporated at all. It doesn't skim over or anything. And you clean it with soap and water. It's a real easy product. It's thin. It's not much heavier than water, but it's a great product, and you can accomplish a lot with it. I do mostly pen blanks, so I use this chamber here. I have a larger chamber for doing larger pieces of wood, but I've only done very few large pieces of wood. And so, but like I said, this stuff can be used until it's gone. If you activate it and use it, just keep using it, use it until it's gone. I've got some that I made a gallon of red up that I've made, and it's down to about a third of a gallon now, and it's still good, still works. And it's and this resin here is 8 years old. It hasn't been activated, so it's still good, because the way you test it, if you think it's bad, you put it in a little shot glass type thing, stick it in your oven, and cook it for an hour or so. If it comes out hard, it's still good. If it doesn't, call the guy that developed this stuff and tell him what you're doing, and he will sell you another bottle of active to put in. Otherwise, he doesn't offer the activator because some people will think that the stuff is bad and it's not, and they'll put another thing of activator in it and then it accelerates. So, but the man that did this, his name is Curtis Seebeck. He has a company called Turntex, and he's the man he makes this type of chamber, makes them bigger as well. But he's very, very helpful. His office hours, he's got funny hours. He works from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. That's what you can call him. He's in Texas, but he's very helpful and extremely knowledgeable. He's the guy that pretty much developed this stuff. And but otherwise, it yes. You buy the gallon that comes with a little bottle of activator that's 27 grams. So when you want to make this kind of a cream, thick cream stuff, you can pour some of this into it, shake it up real good, and then pour it into here. And then shake this up and look at it and see if it's dissolved in there yet. If it hasn't, then you shake it up some more, wait for another hour. And then, like I said, patience is the thing with this stuff. If you're not patient, don't do it. But to me, it's fun because once I get it going, then I can just leave it and I don't have to worry about it. Because I've let this thing run. I did a piece of wood. I had to let it run for 48 hours. But then after you run it, that wood has to soak for twice the amount of time that you ran it under vacuum. So I had the piece of wood soak for 96 hours. So, but that was a larger piece of wood. It was hard maple and it was somewhat successful. It wasn't totally successful. I didn't get total penetration on it. So it's not a foolproof thing, but it sure helps save wood. Like here, I'll pass. You want to pass this around, Phil, or somebody? This was badly spalted maple, and I did it, and I finished that. I sanded it up to 1,000 grit. I didn't use the acrylic type process or anything to finish it. That's all I did with it, and it turned out pretty well. But that wood was really, really, really soft when I started with it. And so, but does anybody have any questions yet? I've never worked with teak. I probably is, yeah. Oh, okay. He wanted to know what oily woods I was talking about. The ones that I was referring to are the ones that mostly come from Central and South America. Cocobolo, Kingwood, East Indian rosewood, tulip wood. And one of the ways you can check for oil, if it does have a high oil content, is just take a paper towel, put some acetone or denatured alcohol on it and wipe it across. And it's not foolproof, but there's a good chance that it'll come back dark. It'll darken up a little bit. If that's the case, that wood doesn't need to be stabilized anyway, because it's pretty stable. It's pretty hard. So it doesn't need it. But the only thing you'll end up doing, if you do, is contaminating your resin. And so you want to try to avoid that. And what else have I got going here? Oh, if anybody's, well, I'll do that at the end. A chamber works under barometric pressure. You measure it in inches of mercury. I think and that's all the science I'm going to get into on it. And you try to obtain as close to a perfect vacuum as you can, which is right at 30 inches of mercury. So, and it'll change in elevation. For every 1,000 feet you go up in elevation, you lose 1 inch mercury on it. So don't hold me to that, because if you want the science of it, Curtis Seebeck has a hell of a demonstration. He goes into all the science of it, and that's as far as I'm going to go. Okay, so, but this here, once you attain that, you put this here on top, fire this thing up, and then you start the process. I'm going to do it with water because nobody wants to sit here for 12 hours and watch that stuff bubble. But if you do, you're going to do it without me. Go. Yes. I ran the pump for 48 hours, yes. But with these pumps, at every 48 hours, I change the oil in it. Because the oil does start to get dirty, and I think it possibly breaks down. The oil is relatively cheap. And so, but the thing is, this is a Chinese pump. If you happen to When you have this on and it's running, if you come up here and turn the pump off before you release the pressure in there, there's one or two things that's going to happen. It's either going to suck resin back into the pump or suck oil back into the resin. The resin would be left, because if you suck this into a Chinese pump, just disconnect the hose and throw it in the garbage can, because you can't do anything with it. They're done. American pumps, BV, and oh God, there's a couple others out, but there are a lot. These you can buy like at Harbor Freight for $65, $70. I have another good one, American, but they start to get up into $300 to $500 range. So that's what I keep on my lathe. But like I said, if you just watch what you're doing, you don't have the problem. If you don't pay attention and happen to shut this thing off, one or two things are going to happen. It's going to go this way or it's going to go this way. So and this stuff at $90 a gallon, you don't want to lose it either, or lose your pump. So fortunately, I got a hold of a couple extra pumps one time when the guy was quitting what he was doing. So I have a couple of backups that I can use if one of them doesn't go in the tank. Yes.
So when you're done,
After you evacuate all the air out, I don't think you can ever get all the air out. There's going to be one or two bubbles pop up. So when that happens, then you disconnect it and you let it. You don't have to let it soak in this, but just put it in a container that you can have enough resin over the top of it. Oh yeah, because what'll happen, like these here, I think I've got 8-10 blanks in there, and I've got the water about 2 inches above. By the time those are done, that water should be, but it won't happen tonight because we won't let it run that long. But those blanks are going to suck up that 2 inches of resin above the top. You don't want it to get down below the top of whatever you have in there. Okay, but it's really, really important that you let those things soak for twice the amount of time. Okay, that you do that. Sometimes if I'm working like with like this here is quilted maple. If I do that for 12 hours, I'll let it soak for 36 hours because it's harder to get into the hardwoods than it is into the softwoods. Right, and some people think that there's a thing out there on YouTube, don't pay any attention to this guy because you'll get in trouble if you do this, but what he does, once he creates a vacuum, he shuts it off, thinking he's gonna keep that vacuum. Well, it doesn't happen. That vacuum is going to break. So you're just defeating what you're trying to do. So you always have to keep that going. And I've run this pump a lot and I haven't had any, and I thought after that 48-hour run, I thought this thing is ready for but I probably put another 200 hours on it. But like I said, I changed the oil in it every 48 hours. And I don't know, would any of you fellows have a gas pump? You do, okay. This is a rotary vane pump. What do they call a gas pump? What type of pump is it? Okay, so it has oil in it. Okay. With those there, you can only draw about 24 pounds of vacuum. With these here, you can draw right at 29. So those will work, but they're not as efficient and don't do quite a good job as this. So this isn't my thing. This is comes from CBAC. He's the one that, like I said, if you go and watch that video, it explains a hell of a lot more than what I can do with it. But otherwise, to me, it's a fun project. Now, for a long time, all I did was just spalted maple blanks like this. And the guy I started with, we started with a pickle jar. And he made a lid up for it, and it worked until the jar blew up. And so, okay. And with this if this stuff blows up and you got dye in it, you got a hell of a mess on your hands. So it's going to take more than a couple rolls of paper towels to get it picked up. But it is water soluble. You put soap and water on you, but there's still going to be color on your floor, no matter what you do. So, but and the thing about, we'll get into dyeing a little bit. This here pepper turned out pink. I did it once, and it turned out like, so I doubled the amount of dye it's 2 ounces per gallon. I use 2 ounces per half gallon, and this is what I got. Now, I talked to Seebeck about it. He says because the wood is so hard that the color won't, because these dyes aren't pigmented. You can't use pigmented dyes in this stuff. And the dyes that you can't use in it are white or fluorescent dyes. You can't use, they don't work. I guess because the white it's pigmented. I don't know that, so that, and the fluorescents are probably pigmented as well. So, but any other dyes, you can use a Lumelite dye or what he has, because it's, both of those dyes are designed for epoxy and for different types of resin. So, but and this here, I ran this, I think I ran this for 30 hours. And what I did is I formed it like it was I sanded it down to 220, stuck it in the chamber, and this is what I got. And I'm not happy with it. I'm still expecting, but what I'm going to do now, probably this week sometime, I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it in blue and see if I can, or green, whatever, to try and see if I can change it a little bit and give it a little more. I've done that by doing just with surface dyes. Put it on, sand it back, put another color on, sand it back, and do it. But I'm just not happy. I'll get it down. It's just going to take some time because I've watched a couple of guys on YouTube that are successful with it, and it doesn't appear they're doing anything different than I am. So I'm just here. I have it here. This here was supposed to be like forest green. This is on maple. That's how that turned out. I'll pass them around if you want. One of these is Massa Birch, and the other is Amboina Burl. And so this here is, I don't know what the hell this is. But, and this here, I started doing, I'm going to triple dye this. I take these pieces and I take small cups and I pour just a little bit of dye and resin into it, and I stick in it, and it soaks up through capillary action. Okay, I don't think it goes very deep because I just started this. And then what I'll do, then you have to cook it, and then I'll take back and I'll drop them in the chamber pot under another color. This one here I'll probably put in red. This one here, I don't know yet, maybe purple. Just to see what it turns out like.
You're dying.
This one here, yeah, because I don't stabilize. When you do it this way, you have to cook it first so you don't draw this color out into the dye that you have in this resin you have in there. Okay, and otherwise, but then I watched the fellow's name is Casey Martin, who does a lot of high-end pen blanks out of burls, and they're really pretty. And he's the one that's got me going on this. So, but there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube if you're more interested in what I'm telling you that you can find out there. Some of it don't pay any attention to. You'll figure that out after you watch a couple of them. There's a few guys out there that really know what they're doing. One is Casey Martin, the guy, fellow's name is Zach Higgins. And they're all right there on YouTube. Any questions?
I got a question. Decide how long to put your pieces under.
Until the bubbles stop. Okay. Oh, he wanted to know how long do I put things under vacuum? I do until the bubbles pretty much stop. You see, all the ones that I've done so far, you're still going to get some bubbles escape in there. And then I mean, if it's not boiling over or just you get one or two popping up here and there, I don't worry about it. It's all as good as I'm going to get it. I'm not going to let that pump run forever trying to get those last few bubbles out of it. But the important part, and people, they cut short on this, is that soaking time. That's because when you cut the pressure off, it's taking all the air out of that wood, and then it's a reverse action. The resin starts to penetrate in where the air has been taken out. That's how the system works. So, but
How do you see the bubble?
well, this is a clear chamber. This one is. That one there is not. So you have to look down. The advantage of that one there is that I can take small containers and put it in there, and I can do how many ever I put in there. If I want to use, say, dye 3 different containers with different color dye in there or different color resin, I can do that all at once in that bigger pot. Because you don't want to have to fill that thing up. That's to take a lot of resin. So that's what I do. But you got to watch it from the top, because when that stuff starts to bubble up, you want to open the chamber up and release that pressure so it backs down. This is older stuff, but he has the new stuff out now that he's reformulated that doesn't bubble up quite as long. This here takes 3 or 4 minutes sometimes, which, but that part doesn't bother me, but it's real careful. You got to watch. And when I turn this on with water, you'll see it start to evacuate the air out. And then, yes, Mike. Yes, it's called Cactus. That's his brand name. There's if you look in Craft Supply, they have one in there made by BV, the people that make. I think it's basically, but theirs is $120 a gallon. This is $90 a gallon. So that's no. I've never tried this, but I don't think there is. So this stuff works fine. I've never had a problem with it. Oven. You do that from 180 to 200 degrees. Okay. And toaster ovens are really inaccurate. So you got to buy a little oven thermometer and put it in there, because this one here, I'll use it one time and I'll have it running at say 195 to 200, and I'll disconnect it. And the next time, and I haven't touched the dial, I'll go back to use it, and it'll either be 20, 30 degrees hotter or colder. So what I do is before I put wood in, I start it up and let it run for 15 or 20 minutes, and then I adjust it to where I need it to be. No. What I do is I put foil in the bottom. And what I bought for that, instead of using regular aluminum foil, I went to Costco, and they have these food service things of aluminum. It's a lighter weight aluminum foil. And I just use those, and when I do it, I just pull them out and get rid of them. Because it can get expensive if you start using heavy duty aluminum foil on them. The only reason, guys, I think we're doing that was to keep the resin from dripping down in the pans. So now, there are some people that still wrap. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do you have any problem with it sticking to the plate?
It'll stick something. I just break them off. Oh, but when you do go to break them off, have a glove on. Those things are 200 degrees. And it can get a little uncomfortable. So, and you can see sometimes I don't know the heaven. Oh yeah, if you look at this one, you want to pass this around, Chris, please? You'll see a little bit of residue on the bottom of that one there. But yeah. Okay. Well, it turns a lot nicer than acrylic does. You don't get that huge ribbon. And did you see the pen?
Yeah.
Okay, that was done. Didn't finish it with the way you do an acrylic pen. I just sanded it to 1,000 grit, polished it, and then put it on the buffer, and that's what it is. So now what? No.
When you cook it from 180, is it cooking to get the hot?
To dry.
To dry.
Right.
It sets it up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It cures it, yeah. And all you do is just open the door up and look at it. If it's wet at all, it's not dry. So
until you bake it, it's just
right,
wet.
right, yeah. It's still wet. So, and a time to dry, I dry mine off for at least 4 hours. Okay, so and that's pretty much it. So, no,
4 hours.
yeah,
Something like that.
yeah. And then what I do also too, which I forgot, after I bring them out and then they've gone through the system, I reweigh them to see how much. Well, you can imagine, but this was pretty light to begin with because it's spalted. It's pretty heavy now if somebody wants to run that around. So yes. Yes. Sure. Number one, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna weigh it to see how much it weighs. And then when I put it in the oven, after it runs for 12 hours, I'm gonna pull it back out and reweigh it and record it. And then I'll stick it back in the oven again for another 2 hours. And to see if the weight is still changing, then I'll put it back in. But if it's remained stable, say I put it in there at 35 grams, and when I check it the first time, it's down to 33. And when I check it again, it's at 33 or 32, then it's dry. It's pretty dry. And after that, I'll pull it out, put it in a couple of Ziploc freezer bags to keep the moisture from coming in. And then I'll let it cool down below room temperature if I'm going to do it that day. I never put anything in there. I try to keep it down at 75 degrees because that resin, like I said, starts to cook at 85 degrees. Okay. So if you put a hot blank in there, it's going to start cooking immediately and you won't get any penetration from the resin. Then after that, when you go through that, let it soak, and then I take it out and I put it in an aluminum pan and let it drip dry. Let it just drip into the pan. And then if I have enough in them, then I'll just take that stuff that's dripped off and I pour it back in the bottle. Use it again. And then after that's done, because I don't want to put them in the oven when they're just dripping wet. You want to let the stuff dry off and it's wet, but yet it's not running off of it. Then I stick it in the oven for however long it needs to go, and then pull it out. And then you take, if you're going to triple dye, like I'm going to do these, you have to sand them. Otherwise, because the stuff after it's cooked, it's going to be a hard surface on it. And so I'll sand it, and then I'll stick it back in the chamber with the color that I'm going to use. So, and yes. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. Oh, as soon as they're dry enough, I'll stick them into the oven. Yeah. Yeah. No. You can take them out once they're dry, cool off. You can go right to the lathe with them. But another thing about those toaster ovens, because they're so inaccurate, do not overload them, because there's been reports of guys burning their shops down because they overload them and they get it up too close to the heat element. If it reaches 200 degrees or whatever it is, 220 if you're drying the wood, and if you get right on the heat element, it's 700 or 800 degrees. And I think wood and night's what, 500 degrees, 400, whatever it is. And then you got a problem on your hands. So just got to be careful. And do not dry this stuff in your wife's oven. Oh man, you can do your wood like I do dry my blanks from the moisture in my smoker, but I also use it as a food warmer, like around the holidays to keep things warm. And but this stuff will admit it's not a foul odor, but it's definitely something your wife's not going to appreciate if you have it running through the house. So keep it out of your oven in the house. Otherwise, yes.
Is it possible to cook this stuff?
I don't know. I've never heard of anybody doing it, so I don't know. So I wouldn't use one. If you got one in the shop, go ahead and use the one in the shop. So I did, but I don't know. So and we'll get this thing going. And you have any other questions? Oh, if you're interested in buying these things, I went online today and found this system here with the pump. And one thing, if you do buy one, make sure it doesn't have an acrylic lid. That stuff and acrylic lids like this will start to microfracture. And after a while, they will implode. So you want to get a tempered glass lid like this, and then you're fine. But I made the mistake, and when I bought my first one like this, I didn't know, and I bought it with the acrylic. I thought, boy, that's a hell of a deal. Oh yeah, if I want to have them. So you just make sure you buy one. And I found two online. This one, like I have here, comes from Baco Engineering. and it's $180 with the pump. Then I found one from, I guess it's called Vevor, VEVOR, a 3-gallon, same as this, same size pump for 125. This is this is 3-gallon. Yeah. And like I said, if you're doing, say, a bunch of different pen blanks, you want to have different colors on them or whatever, you can just stick them in individual containers that'll fit in there, and you can do them all at once. Instead of trying to do, like, I think I can get 8 in there or whatever, depending on the size of the blanks. But I'm never in a hurry to, and I don't do this trying to sell them, so I'm not in a big hurry to try to do a whole bunch of it. So I use this thing here primarily, mainly because I can see it from the side, and as you get older too, vision starts to go a little bit. So but and then you can get into the whole thing. If you buy that Vevor, I don't know how much these things cost today, but I'm sure you can get them for. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so now you're in there for. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's good to know. Yeah. Does yours vary a lot too? Yeah. So there's a better way. I mean, there's some guys take and buy, they'll go to a secondhand appliance store or something and buy a used oven. So if you have the room in your shop, and they'll hook that up and use that thing. And then some of the guys that are really into it, they'll use like these warmer ovens that, like, say the sandwich shops have that cook their own bread, and they'll use those things there. But this is the cheapest way to go. But just be careful with it, because do not overload it. Like I'll put on 2 trays, and you have to keep the wood apart. If you get it touching, if they're touching, you're not going to get them apart unless you cut them apart. Okay, but otherwise, it's a simple process. To me, it's fun, and I've got into a lot of other things in wood turning that cost me a whole lot more money than what this does. Okay, so any other questions or anything, and I'll get this thing going so we can. That's just water. But all I'm doing is reading the vacuum, and then I break it free. See, that thing is pink. I guess I didn't clean it up. The air, the bubbles from the off. But with resin in there, it'll do a lot. It'll go a lot longer. So if you have any other questions or whatever, we'll just float. See what I mean? It wouldn't have hurt anything because it's just water, but. You got to make sure this thing is on to give me smell. Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. Yeah, with the resin. Yeah. Now, a lot of them, the ones that CVEC sells now, he only has the one valve. This, I don't know how I ended up with this. I think I made this one up. So. tell it when it starts to foam and stays down, about like that right there. So there's a lot of air in that wood. So yeah, I'm just using water, yeah. Because I don't want to sit here for 12 hours. Yeah. Okay. Stuff for what? No, no. But uh, what'll happen? Seebeck did that. He lives in Texas where there's a lot of scorpions. He put a cricket in there one time and he put he put a scorpion in there and ran it, shut it off, and the scorpion crawled out. So, because those are tough little critters. You gotta. Get there. Yes. Just walk. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. And they'll be much more condensed. These are big air bubbles in here. But, yeah. Once it reaches a point of equilibrium, then it's fine. And then you can just. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Like I said, I've never done this before, guys, so I'm not used to this. Yes. So you either have to close it or you can, when you want to release it, you can just break it part way. I'll show you. Looks like it's going to settle down. So I think. What was your question? Oh yeah. Well, you got to look down. So I probably would have been better off to use resin.
We do.
You guys can break now if you want. You don't sit there and watch this. That's fine.
Okay, do we want to take a break
You
then?
can go ahead and I'll sit watching this and then.
Okay, let's all
so-
take our refreshment break. Keep in mind the Dolphin sweepstakes. He's going to watch this, and then we can kind of talk right after the break. We'll talk about how it finished up and what's going on, or come on over here and talk to Bill while you're on the break. You want something to drink?
I got it.
Okay. You want a cookie or anything?
No.